Hello YouTube, Brian Tubbs coming at you with another video. Today I'm working on the base for Heart of Man. I made a video before this one. I was working on the arms that would connect to the center circle of Heart of Man. And I told you guys that once I got that portion together, I'll kind of let you see it and see how it was done. And I showed the base in that video. It was standing on the floor in this area here. But I just had an idea this morning. I wanted to show you guys kind of how we do it. This is stainless steel. It's close to 3/8, somewhere in there, about 3/8. And there's a couple things about it. Whether you're building a 36-inch tall base or 12-inch, 15, it doesn't matter. They're all basically made the same. But if you go to an art show or you're looking around and you're looking at bases or sculptures, larger outdoor sculptures, or pedestals inside of a booth with smaller art pieces on, they're basically all made the same. It's going to have most likely 4 sides and a top. And you might be wondering, does it have a bottom on it? Well, you can put a bottom on it, but it's best to not put a bottom on it. It's best to leave that bottom open, because if you're doing an art show and all the booths are on grass, uneven surfaces, and you set your pedestals on that uneven surface with a bottom on it, it's going to rock like crazy. You put your expensive art pieces on it, someone come in there and touch a piece and the whole thing falls over. So you don't want to put a bottom on it, so I'll let you kind of see how that looks. So as you can see, this is open, all open. And what we'll do next is make little feet. We call them feet or tabs. They're about 1.25 inches wide, about 2.5 inches long. We'll put like a 1/2 inch diameter, drill a 1/2 inch diameter circle, a hole in it. It'll sit on this edge, to extend out about this far, and it'll have a hole in it. We'll have it on all 4 corners. So when you set it on the ground in its permanent location, if someone wants to put it on a concrete pad or whatever you're going to put it on, you would run either your concrete bolts through those holes, or you get 3-foot long threaded rod, put it through the holes just to mount it more permanently into the ground. But again, this is open, stainless steel, and that's pretty much how a base for a large piece, or like I said, when you go into someone's booth, they have pedestals made. This is basically how it's made. So what I did yesterday was I went and grinded all the welds down on the edges, and then of course it was MIG welded, so there were pin holes throughout, little holes. So again, last night, after I used a grinder to grind it down, I took my MIG welder, my Lincoln, and drilled all the pin holes. Took the grinders, ground it down again, and there were still pinholes, which is to be expected. So today I'm using my TIG welder to fill the pinholes, which will, it's better using the TIG welder to fill your pinholes than it is a MIG welder. So I'm doing that today. And I told you guys before that in the last video, I think it was, when you use a MIG welder to weld, the welds are a lot harder than TIG welds. So these are what's left of these two hard grinding bits. These are DeWalt's. They are the DeWalt DW4514. And if you guys can see, this is what's left of it. I mean, it's basically disintegrated. These were new hard grinding discs. We call them rock grinding discs. They're hard and they're noisy as anything when you're grinding with them. And just grinding down that, just 4 edges of stainless steel MIG welds, it literally just destroyed these. I mean, these were, they extended past the paper about that much, if you can see that, and now it's down to a little or nothing. That's how hard stainless steel MIG welds are. I mean, I went through 2 of those things last night, and I went through flat discs. After I ground the welds down decently with those, I'll go back over it with this to kind of smooth it out a little bit more to reveal, you know, the pinholes and whatnot. So whenever you can TIG weld something like this, it's better. It'll save you time. It'll save you pads. It'll just be a lot easier. I had to put my my ear protection in. Had to close the door so the people around us wouldn't hear all this loud grinding. And I'm still not done. That was I spent probably 3 hours on this thing yesterday, and it's still not done. So normally I would TIG weld the whole thing, but I didn't have time to do it, so I just had my wife MIG weld it. She did an excellent job with the MIG weld. It's just the MIG welds are just hard, especially when you're dealing with stainless steel. Had it been mild steel, just regular ER70S or ER80S D2, I would have knocked that out in 30 minutes. So if you can TIG weld stainless, that's the best way to go. But if you must MIG weld it, just know it's going to take you a while to knock those welds down. And the best thing I found to do the preliminary work, just knocking the high areas off, is using these. Like I said, these are DeWalt pads. This one is a DW4514. This one is a DT3402. So without those, I would have gone through probably 20 of my flat pads, and those are 36 grit. I would have just gone right through them. This stuff would just burn them to shreds. Okay, guys, that's how you put bases together, and pedestals the same way. Pedestals might be a 12 by 12 square. They can be 10 by 10, 8 by 8, 14 by 14. Just depends on what you decide to do in your booth. Or we oftentimes get customers that come in that want us to make them a booth. So we'll show them what we have in our booth as far as dimensions, and if they pick one of those dimensions, we'll just go get the material if we don't already have the material, make our cuts, put it together. When we make pedestals for indoors, or like for our art shows, we'll use mostly either 16 or 14 gauge, just mild steel. We don't use stainless steel, we just use mild steel because it's either going to be painted or powder coated. And so I showed you guys in the video where I was making Odyssey, making the arms or extensions for Odyssey, how I laid the metal flat, measured everything out, made my mark, took my cutoff wheel and just cut a little groove in the back side of the metal that was going to go around the outer portion of Odyssey. You'd have to watch the video to see what I'm talking about. But I cut a little groove in there, took that piece to the vise and just bent it. It just bent flawlessly. The corners were perfect when I made the bend. That's the same thing we do with pedestals. If the pedestal is going to be, just say, 30 inches tall, and it's going to be 12 inches wide, 12-inch square, I will cut the sheet to 30 inches, and then I would say, okay, you have 12 for this side, 12 for this side, 12 and 12. So that's what, 48 inches. So I'll cut my sheet 30 by 48. Then I will get my my straight edge, lay it on there, and mark 12, 24, 36, and then that 48 will be the other outside corner. I'll mark it on the top, then at the bottom of that 30 inches, I'll mark it again, 12, 24, 36, 48. Then I'll take that straight edge, go from the top mark to the bottom, and put it in with a marker or a scratch awl. I'll just make my line, go to the next one, same thing, next one, same thing. Then take my cutoff wheel, put my straight edge on there, clamp it down so it's tight. Take the cutoff wheel and just trace right along the straight edge. And I'm gonna look around trying to find my straight edge just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. If you don't already know, most of you guys I'm sure know. This is a straight edge. It's 60 inches long, so that's 5 feet long. So I will lay it on my 48 inch long by 30 inch tall sheet. Lay it from point to point up here, point down here. I would, you can either mark it, go to the next one, or you can just put it on the mark on the bottom, the mark on the top, at 12 and 12. Take your cutoff wheel and just cut along there. Get that line, and then you can remove this and just follow that groove that you cut in. Take it down until you just see a little divot. You don't want to go too deep because you'll cut through it. A little divot. Then after you've done that to all sections, you can take a piece of steel, flat bar if you have something that big, lay it on that line. You can take a 2x4 that's straight, lay it on that line, and then you clamp it down to the table, take the other portion and start lifting it up, and it'll bend to like straight lines, really just perfect lines. You bend that first one up, lay it, do the same thing, put your straight edge, whatever it is you have on there, on that next line, bend the metal up, and keep doing that until you get this thing folded in 4. And then in that way, you only have that one seam to weld. You don't have 4 corners to weld because those are just bent. You just weld that one corner up. And before, what we normally do is when we get that corner we're going to weld up, we'll put it together, just tack it in a few spots. Get your square, make sure everything is square. We'll have another sheet, we'll lay on the ground, just a flat sheet of 16 or 14. We'll take the pedestal we're making, turn it upside down so the top is now on the bottom. We'll set it on that piece, trace it. I will normally mark one side. Say if I'll mark this here, I'll mark this side with just a little line. Then I'll mark that pieces on the ground with a little line, so I'll know that that side goes with that side of the pedestal. So we're not guessing, because it won't fit up right. Then you take your scratch awl and just trace around the pedestal. Remove the pedestal, cut that piece out, flip the pedestal back over, put that top on, tack it in, all the way around, just tack it. And what that'll do is when you're welding that seam, it'll keep your pedestal from shifting or tweaking one way or the other. That top will lock it in so it's not going to move too much. And then after we tack that up really good, the top, then we'll go ahead and weld that seam. And then you come back, weld your top, take your grinder, knock the welds off of that seam, and then just grind your top, smooth everything out. Take your grinder with a 80 or 120, rough the whole surface up. You can spray paint it, or you can take it to a powder coater. Powder coaters on average wants about a 240 grit grinder mark in it, so that powder coat will adhere. With paint, I'll do like a 80 or 120, something like that, just depends. Alright, so that's kind of how we build our pedestals and bases. And there's one last tip I'm going to give you guys before I go, because I got to get back to these pinholes. Say for example, let me step back a little bit. Whenever you're welding metal, I don't care what metal it is, either welding or plasma cutting, you have to have a ground, because you have to have that loop from the welder to the piece, back to the machine, like that. Either negative or positive, it just depends on how you have it set up. Now, when you're welding, you have to have a ground clamp. Now, in this case, I can take my ground clamp that's coming from my TIG welder, I can just clamp it on here, and I can start welding. But now, if I spin this around, and my ground clamp doesn't reach this edge to clamp it on, what do? I have a magnetic, my ground clamp connects to this, it's magnetic. So if I'm working, if this piece was mild steel, no problem, I'll just clamp this onto it and start welding. This is mild steel piece of tube. I just stick it on there and start welding. This has a large magnet on the inside, and it has this piece of brass goes from here, goes through it. So when I put this on a piece of metal, the magnet sucks it in. Then this piece is in contact with the metal. Then I put my ground clamp on this. So like I said, if you're dealing with mild steel, that's fine. Or if you're dealing with stainless steel, your higher grade stainless steel is not as magnetized as your mild steel. Some stainless steel, the lower grades, can be somewhat magnetic, but like this is 304, 316, what we use is not. So you're going to put your ground clamp on, it won't stick. What do you do now? So in this case, I'm welding on this guy, and my ground clamp won't reach here. I don't want to keep having to pick this thing up and twisting it around and whatnot. So I'm going to put the ground clamp on, like this morning. I guess I was tired or something. I want to put this onto the stainless steel, and it wouldn't stick. I said, oh gosh, I forget. I'm dealing with stainless steel. So what do you do in a case like that? The ground clamp won't reach this side to clamp on. This side over here is closed. No open areas. So what do you do? This is a little trick I came up with. You can grab a piece of mild steel, stainless steel, aluminum, it doesn't matter, as long as it can conduct electricity. You would take it, it doesn't have to be this shape. It could be any shape, anything, just a piece of steel. What you do, you get some clamps, you get your piece, just stick it on, clamp it on there, take your ground clamp, clamp it to it. Now you can weld. You can weld all day. You can weld on it. You can plasma cut it. Anything, because you have your ground clamp to it. It doesn't have to be this big thing that's welded to it in order to do it. No, just get a your squeeze clamp. Just clamp it on there tight, and you're good to go. Another tip, another trick, and that's how we do it. All right, guys. On the next video, hopefully I will have the upper portion of Heart of Man almost complete, and maybe we'll be attaching it or attached to the base. It just depends on how things flow today. But that's going to do it for this video. So check out the next video just to see where we are, to get an update, and maybe I'll have another tip or two for you guys to check out. Alright then, guys, that's going to do it for this video. So I will see you on the next. Peace out.